If this isn't your first time watching a Subjectively video, then there's a pretty good chance that you discovered our channel through our Maza region series. If this is your first Subjectively video, then you might not know what any of those words even mean. Pokemon has always been a huge inspiration to me, ever since I was a kid. In fact, it's safe to say that every illustration I've made since the age of 7 has been inspired, either consciously or unconsciously, by this worldwide multimedia franchise. A few years ago, I thought it would be fun to revisit some old ideas for Pokemon concepts of my own, Fakemon, as they're known in the community. What started as a simple concept for a single video spiraled into a massive series spanning over 3 years and dozens of videos. Our channel grew exponentially, almost tripling in size from the new fans coming in to see our hypothetical next generation of Pokemon. I must have designed somewhere around 100 Fakemon. I can't be right. I think somewhere between 90 and 100 Fakemon. I don't know the exact number. But what's more, I was able to inspire our ever-growing audience to create artwork of their own. We hosted contests that allowed our fans to contribute directly to the Maza region, with winning entries so stunningly well-designed that I found myself becoming the student and my fans the teachers. Fan art was made in every shape and form you could imagine. We had people painting beautiful scenes from the Maza landscape, 3D rendered models of Pokemon that I had created, and even a few physical sculptures. And of course, the crown jewel of the Maza region series, Project Untamed. A fully playable game built from scratch, made by some of the most talented and dedicated artists, coders, writers, and developers that I have ever met. This game is still in development, a massive undertaking, and the team is actively looking for more people to help contribute. If you have skills in writing, coding, pixel art, or character design, and you have some time that you're willing to put aside for this amazing collaborative effort, be sure to check out the official Project Untamed Discord. I'll put the link in the description. I am so unbelievably proud of the Maza region. It put my channel on the map, it sparked enthusiasm for my craft in what feels like thousands of developing artists, and the work that is continuing to be made blows me away. Honestly, a really big part of me wants to keep working on it, and I know that if I let myself, I could spend another 3 years improving, adding on to, and revising this first idea. But that's the thing about first ideas. They shouldn't be your last. It might be tempting to continuously fine-tune a single idea until you're either happy with it or your grandchildren put you in a nursing home. And if you're anything like me, it's probably going to be the latter. Instead, learn from your first idea. Every mistake that you made and every triumph that pushed you forward. Take all of your experiences, the good and the bad, and let them push you towards your next big idea. Chances are it's going to be just as good, if not better, than that first idea that you worked so hard on. That's what I did. That's what I'm going to do, and that's what I'm doing right now. We're back, everyone. Welcome to Subjectively. That's the name of the channel, by the way. My name is Jack, and I know it's not nearly as cool of a name. So, I've been teasing the idea of my own collectible monster game for a while now. It's all very nebulous at the moment, and even I couldn't tell you all the details yet, because I don't know them myself. If you are familiar with our channel, however, then you might already have an idea of where I'm taking this. The Maza region series has demanded most of my time as an artist for the past few years, but it's not the only thing I've been working on. While most of you found this channel from our Pokemon content, some of you may have first discovered us through our month-long drawing challenges. Mermay, Smoggist, and of course, Apoctober were fun ways for me to develop strong work habits as I created a new piece of artwork every day for an entire month, themed around a different vague genre of character design. Apoctober, out of all of the challenges I did, ended up becoming a lot more than just 31 illustrations and a YouTube playlist. I started to fall in love with the world I created around these simple prompts, a world of mystery and chaos, inhabited by characters whose main motivation was curiosity, and creatures of unknown origin who danced the line between reality and the impossible. Eventually, I would come to call these creatures enigmorphs, and with that, the world of Apocryphal was born. Apocryphal, adjective. Of doubtful authenticity, although widely circulated as being true. The story of Apocryphal takes place here, on Earth, but not everything is quite the same as the world that we're familiar with. Stories replace truths, legends become reality, and the impossible is really only hypothetical. The setting? Providence, Rhode Island, late 19th century. A time in human history governed by the burgeoning fields of science and exploration. Here, people want answers more than they want the truth, and if they have to simplify reality to satisfy their curiosity, then so be it. But not everyone is content to ignore the complex nature of this universe just for the sake of placidity. There are some who will risk their lives, even their sanity, to uncover what really goes on behind the curtains of existence. This group of brilliant scientists, brave-hearted adventurers, and meticulous tacticians call themselves the Hunter's Hope Club, and their quarry, the Enigmorphs. Now, I know what you're thinking. Jack, this doesn't really sound anything like Pokemon. Well, yeah, you're right, it doesn't. Look, I love Pokemon, everything that it's contributed to the art world and the video game world, but here's the thing. For decades since Pokemon's conception, other developers have tried to recreate its success. Some flopped more significantly than others, but in the grand scope of things, there has never been another game that fits within the subgenre of monster collection that has come anywhere near the level of universal popularity that Pokemon has. Whatever your opinions are about the newest games, the integrity of the company, or the future of the franchise, there's no denying that Pokemon has been dominating this space for longer than most of the people watching this video have even been alive. As someone who's been enjoying Pokemon and everything that it has to offer for the past 20 years or so, I feel like I can, with confidence, break down the elements of what makes the franchise so successful. Firstly, Pokemon is multimedia. It spans every form of entertainment, from video games to TV shows to movies to clothings to toys to card games to food products to children's books to comics to giant balloons to entire buildings lit up with Pikachu's face. You get the idea. It would be easier to list the types of content that haven't been marked with the official Pokemon seal, and this means more money to produce more content, more advertising to bring in more fans, and more fans to spread love and appreciation for the franchise. Secondly, Pokemon does not discriminate. From its inception, Pokemon has always been an inclusionary series. Okay, maybe in the first games you had to play as a boy, but from Gen 2 onward, the developers of the series made sure to appeal to every possible audience that they could. This doesn't just mean gender inclusivity, they also catered to every taste in character design. You've got cute Pokemon, tough Pokemon, Pokemon that look like rocks, Pokemon that look like cakes, Pokemon you can cuddle with, Pokemon that can end the world, and all of them have the potential to be your friend. A lot of people point to newer Pokemon designs as uninspired or irrefutable evidence that Gamefreak is running out of ideas, but I see every Pokemon design that doesn't appeal to me and think, wow, someone just found a new favorite Pokemon. Finally, Pokemon adapts. Gen 1 took place over 25 years ago. Kids who bought those games when they came out have their own kids now, and those kids can continue to enjoy a modern version of the same world that their parents loved. I have been playing Pokemon games since 2003, 20 years, and I still want to give this company my money. I literally can't think of anything else that has that kind of appeal to me. After all this time, after how much I as a person have grown and changed, I still love the same games that captivated me during my childhood. Not because they're identical to those I played as a kid, but because the franchise has grown alongside me. This willingness to change with the times is not just important for a game series like Pokemon to remain relevant, it's essential. With these three cornerstones of success, Pokemon has grounded itself within the hearts and souls of millions of people all around the world. Could any other game series even dream of reaching an audience in the same way? If you ask me, probably not. It seems next to impossible to try to recreate the exact same success that Pokemon has found in the exact same way that they did it. So, why not try a different way? Hence my dramatic shift from the familiar tones and imagery of Pokemon into a very different world that fills a very different niche. This isn't to say that I intend to abandon all connections to Pokemon in my own collectible monster world. When I think about the Enigmorphs and the future games that I might make around them, I like to pinpoint what exactly it is about existing Pokemon games that I love so much. For me, the biggest appeals in mainline Pokemon games are the elements of collection, exploration, and multiplayer gameplay. I love shiny hunting. I love discovering rare Pokemon spawns. I love that feeling you get when you send out a Pokemon in battle and your friend says, "Whoa, you have a shiny Alpha Toxicroak?" It's definitely more prevalent in the newer open-world Pokemon games, but exploration and discovery has become something I crave in games like Pokemon. The turn-based RPG combat doesn't excite me all that much. Planning out teams and becoming the very best like no one ever was. Sorry, Ash, but I don't really care about going to VGC finals. I'll beat the Elite Four, but only because I want to get to that sweet endgame content and find all of the rare new Pokemon that await me just behind that locked door. In my game, I want these three elements to shine brighter than anything else. I want players to be rewarded for exploring, I want discovery to take precedence over dominance, and I want people to be able to do all of this with their friends, sharing their experiences together. As the player, you'll have access to all of the fun, Jules Verne-esque steampunk technology that you could ever hope for to facilitate your expeditions into the impossible. Now, I will admit that the visuals for this game series and the themes that we were just talking about sort of serendipitously aligned themselves. You see, I'm approaching this game with a top-down design method, which means I'm going to be doing my art thing first, and then working from that into game design. Top-down design is a term used by developers of the trading card game Magic the Gathering. It refers to one of two different approaches the MTG team uses when coming up with new cards. Using a top-down method, they start with a character, its lore, and its visuals, as you can see here at the top of the card, and then design mechanics for the card that will best fit its pre-established flavor. The inverse would be a bottom-up design approach, where they come up with a fun mechanic that they think would contribute something new and exciting to the game, as you'll read here on the bottom half of the card, and then approach an artist and ask them to come up with some visuals that they think best fit those mechanics. As an artist, I'm partial to the top-down approach, as coming up with cool visuals and working backwards from there into game design is much easier and much more engaging for me. It's through this approach that I started to design the first few rough concepts for Enigmorphs. I used this last October as an opportunity to brainstorm a few ideas for the Enigmorphs. These were rough concepts that, like all of the illustrations that I do for these month-long challenges, were inspired by a single word prompt. Things like blizzard, fruiting, and lightning. Really vague ideas that have a lot of room for innovation. If you're interested in character design, I highly recommend participating in one of these month-long design challenges at least once. I guarantee you'll learn something worthwhile. From these first ideas, I began to solidify certain mechanics within the game. Now, keep in mind, nothing I'm saying right now should be considered to be set in stone, all right? Everything is a work in progress and is subject to change. For now, though, here's what I have in regards to mechanics and how my designs informed them. Like Pokemon, I imagine there will be combat in this game. This will help players achieve a sense of satisfaction even if exploration alone isn't enough to keep them engaged. Combat and exploration-based games go hand in hand. The ever-present sense of danger means that players will stay attentive, always on the lookout for anything that might help them survive to explore another day. However, I'm not entirely sure what the combat might look like. I want to keep the core of the combat system simple, most likely turn-based, JRPG-like encounters similar to Pokemon. Balancing this with an open-world exploration style of gameplay may be tricky, however. Pokemon Legends Arceus has some good bones to build off of. I can't think of many other games like it, somewhere in between a classic turn-based RPG and newer adventure games that reward the player not for progressing linearly, but by striking out and discovering the world their way. If we're to assume that this game has a combat system similar to Pokemon, then I'd like a type effectiveness system that is similar as well. Working top-down from my designs into mechanics, I've come up with typings that are reminiscent of Pokemon, but function in a way that corresponds with the setting of the apocryphal world. Before we get to that, though, you need to know more about the Enigmorphs themselves. What are they? Where did they come from? And how is the player going to interact with them? Firstly, there are four main types of Enigmorphs: Nascent, Harbinger, and Apex Enigmorphs, which we'll discuss in a bit, as well as Prime Enigmorphs. Prime Enigmorphs are extra-dimensional beings that have existed for longer than the universe itself. Once upon a time, they had unlimited influence over all of creation, some even bringing into existence the very galaxies that we live in. Their uncontested reign over reality was challenged by a group known as the Coalition of Mortal Madness, who weakened the Prime Enigmorphs by inflicting upon them mortal vices. Such weaknesses as pride, apathy, loneliness, and so on forced the Primes to recede into the dark corners of the universe so as not to be unmade by the puny mortals. Since then, the Prime Enigmorphs sought to reclaim their lost power by quietly infiltrating our terrestrial realms. Their covert presence on planets such as Earth can be identified by unusual phenomenons, and more specifically, nascent enigmorphs. Nascent enigmorphs are the result of a Prime Enigmorph's conscious or unconscious interference with the mortal realm. Anything in our reality can become corrupted into a nascent enigmorph, from birds to trees and even pieces of scrap metal. These enigmorphs have had sentience unwillingly thrust upon them, and most have little to no idea what they are or why they exist. Some retain the memories of the living things they once were, others take on the personalities of the living things around them. Some will remain in this form forever, and others can corrupt even further into Harbinger enigmorphs. Harbingers will only occur under certain conditions, but all must corrupt from a nascent enigmorph. Harbingers are usually larger and more unusual in appearance, but not necessarily more powerful than their nascent form. How strong or weak any enigmorph is depends on the interactions they have with humans, the mortal world, and other enigmorphs. Under the right circumstances, some harbingers can corrupt into a final form, the apex enigmorphs. Apex enigmorphs are the closest thing to the prime enigmorphs that anything in the mortal realm could ever be. Often they take on the form of what they consider to be the most powerful entity within their proximity, which often means they tend to resemble humans, or at least boast humanoid features. These enigmorphs are much harder to find than nascents or harbingers, and usually require some sort of human intervention lest their unpredictable nature get the best of them. If it makes it easier for you, consider each form of these enigmorphs to be similar to that of a Pokemon evolutionary line. First, second, and third forms. However, unlike Pokemon, enigmorphs don't progress in form linearly. A nascent enigmorph can shift between its Harbinger and Apex form at will, or at the will of the player. A corruption cycle, rather than an evolutionary line. The three stages of corruption also differentiate from the Pokemon conventions of evolution in so much as each stage of the line can be as powerful as any other. Perhaps with enough hard work on the part of the player, a nascent enigmorph can be strong enough to take on an apex enigmorph without having to corrupt itself into its apex form. Which brings us to the typing of the enigmorphs. Once again, none of this is set in stone. Everything I'm showing you now is representative of the very early stages of this process and will likely change. We'll start with the origin types. This triangle of effectiveness represents the main three types of nascent enigmorphs that can be brought into existence by the primes: flora, fauna, and construct. Construct, being anything inanimate brought to life by the primes, is strong against fauna. Fauna, being any animal that was touched by the prime's influence, is strong against flora. Flora, unsurprisingly being any plant life touched by the primes, is strong against construct. All nascent enigmorphs will be one of these three types. Essentially, they can only ever be animal, vegetable, or mineral. However, once they corrupt into harbinger forms, their typings can change. Flora enigmorphs can either remain a flora type, or corrupt into acid, bloom, or fungal type. Fauna enigmorphs can, once again, remain fauna types as they corrupt, or they may become aquatic, dark, or flying type. Construct enigmorphs can, you guessed it, remain construct type or change into a fire, electric, or light type. Finally, as the harbingers corrupt further into apex forms, they can each change their typings once again. Any flora-based type, including acid, bloom, or fungal types, can corrupt in their apex form into fey type. Any enigmorph that originated from a fauna type, including those that have corrupted into aquatic, dark, or flying types, can become a daemon type. And any of the four types in the construct tree, construct, fire, electric, and light, can corrupt into the immortal type. To give you an example, take the Woe corruption cycle. The nascent form of this cycle, Woe is a fauna type. It corrupted from some form of animal life, probably a baby bird. it can potentially corrupt further into Perpetual and change its type from Fauna to Flying. Finally, it will corrupt into Fourfeather, a Demon-type Apex Enigmorph. On the other hand, a cycle like Borobark functions a little bit differently. Borobark, the nascent form, is a Flora type. When it corrupts into its Harbinger form, Abhorrent, it remains a Flora type. However, in its final Apex form, Belbora, it becomes a Fey type. Some Enigmorphs remain the same type all the way through their corruption cycle. Coggle, in its nascent form, is a Construct type. When it corrupts into Scrap Send, it remains a Construct type. And finally, the Apex form Indominus, another Construct type. There are two other types that no nascent, Harbinger, or Apex Enigmorph can ever be. Cosmic and Spectral are the two types reserved for the Prime Enigmorphs and denote their particular type of otherworldly power. Cosmic Enigmorphs come from the infinite void of our universe, celestial beings that exist in and beyond a single galaxy. They are usually much more alien in appearance. Think Lovecraft, Bloodborne, and even Aurelian Sol. Spectral Enigmorphs, like Cosmics, don't come from our mortal plane of existence. They exist in what humans consider to be the afterlife, a type of existence that persists even after the physical universe burns out and dies. Basically, they're ghosts. Really powerful ghosts. Again, and at least as of right now, only the Prime Enigmorphs can be these types. Maybe at some point I'll decide that having two types that are exclusive to what amounts to the legendary Pokemon of the series might be somewhat unbalanced, and I'll have to change it, but for now, we're working top down. How all of these Enigmorph types will interact with each other is, like the Enigmorphs themselves, still a mystery to me. But I'm open to hear what kind of type effectiveness you guys think each element on the typing chart should have. In fact, I'd like to hear all of the thoughts that you have about what I've shown you in today's video. There's still a lot more that I'm going to share with you, things like characters and details about the story and what roles the player is going to have within the world, but for now, I'm going to save it. Like with the Maza region, I imagine that this Enigmorph project is sort of a team effort. So many of my beloved ideas that came from that series were actually suggestions by fans like you. It's a really unique opportunity as an artist, storyteller, and writer to have such a large community to provide me with feedback. It's almost like I'm working with a professionally sized team. So please leave any and all thoughts you have about the beginnings of this project down in the comments. Thoughts about the story, the world, and the art direction, specifics like how you think things might be balanced, or nitpicks about specific designs. Any questions you may have, and I really hope that you do have some, leave those down in the comments as well. The world of Apocryphal is driven by curiosity. Enigmorphs, by definition, shouldn't exist, but they do. Why? How? When? These questions not only motivate the characters within the world, but the players themselves. Thank you all for watching, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed this video. It's been a long time in the making, and our ultimate goal is to make this Enigmorph endeavor our next big series. If you liked this video and you want to see more, be sure to leave us a like and subscribe if you haven't already. You could also support us on Patreon. I was going to do a bigger Patreon plug in this video, but it's already so long. Anyway, we got awesome stuff on there for our Patreon supporters. Probably some Enigmorph merch pretty soon. Who knows? Thanks again for watching. Happy holidays, and we'll see you all in the next video.